Thank you all for coming again today. I hope we thought it was a success yesterday. We got a lot of wonderful comments, and I hope that today is just as successful, if not even more. We have a great lineup of panelists today, this morning. Just briefly, almost everybody was here. There's a couple, 2 or 3 people who weren't able to be here yesterday. I'm Mary Engel. I founded and I'm the president of APAG. One thing I forgot to do is some of you are members, but if you're not a member of APAG, please look at the website, apag.us, which you now hopefully are familiar with. And if you'd like to be a member, we'd love to have you. We have these beautiful new shirts, if you haven't seen them. I'm big into merchandising. Anyway, and I like to wear them. I made them for Little Fugitive 60th anniversary. Anyway, but the most important thing is why we're here, and hopefully, again, you'll have an interesting day. Also, social media related that I've also forgotten. If you go to the Facebook APAG page and you like us, we would appreciate that, right, Julie? That always helps.
Yes.
I forget to say that. I don't Twitter or tweet or do any of that at the moment, even though I have a name. So I think that's it. This is a somewhat casual thing. If you have to leave for some reason, of course, leave. Everybody knows the bathroom puzzle and complicated maze at the end now. If you're new, make sure you get a little slip on the front table to just show you how to go. It's down that way. And hopefully you'll not get lost like our major star yesterday, we won't mention any names, was lost, but with a good friend, so they had a good time. Anyway, there's coffee. We're going to have coffee later at our 3:30. We have a couple breaks, and Penelope will give you a couple more things for the moment, but enjoy. Thank you so much.
So welcome back. I'm really excited about yesterday. We had, like I say, no idea that we put this together so quickly in 2 months and how it would come off, and it was beyond my expectations. So I hope it was wonderful for you guys too, and next year will be even grander. I just wanted to, a few new people today, tell them our complicated thing about the questions, which actually worked out really well. Those of you who were here, most of you, I think the breakout sessions did well, but the idea being that at lunchtime, there's some cards on the table, and if you have a question for either a specific panelist from the morning or a panel, or the afternoon panel, because you can look at who's going to be there and what the panel's about, or you can continue the questions during the afternoon panel as well. You'll give those questions to me, and I will hand them out to each of the panel groups. This particular panel will be in another room. There'll be 3 rooms. The last panel of the day will stay in this room, and then you can choose. You can go to those panels and just sit and listen. And yesterday, I had to kick the last panel out. They were still chatting when everybody had left. I opened a door and was like, oh my gosh, you people are still here. So that was great. But anyway, I'll explain that again later on. But it's to give you the opportunity to have a smaller dialogue with specific people that you'll be interested in. So today's opening panel is marketing, websites, and social media, kind of a broad spectrum that we put together. Our panelists include Robert Pledge, Julie Grahame, and Stuart Wolferman. And I'll just tell you a bit about each of them and what they're going to be speaking about. Julie is our first speaker. She's going to discuss how the web and websites can work for you with a keynote presentation. Julie is a publisher of aCurator.com, a full-screen photography magazine, and the associated aCurator blog, named as one of the 10 best photo sites by the British Journal of Photography. That's a pretty good honor. In related work, Julie, who has represented the estate of Yousuf Karsh for licensing for 10 years, and that could be of interest to you all in terms of licensing questions, and is also a portfolio reviewer, speaker, and consultant, and is a member of the American Society of Picture Professionals. She'll be speaking first. Second will be Stuart Wolferman, who will discuss how to build a website and the social media designs that suit your own particular purposes. Stuart is a publicist and a songwriter. He served as the publicity director for the Seattle Youth Symphony Orchestras and has served as festival director for the Marrowstone Music Festival and education director at Jack Straw Productions. You're probably wondering his connection to photography.
Me too.
I dragged him in here. But But he graciously agreed to come because he had the website and social media expertise, which crosses all medias. In 2003, Stuart took the position of publicity director at Herbert Barrett Management, handling publicity materials for a roster of over 120 artists. Again, this is where I think it would, relate to everyone here. In 2005, he officially launched Unfinished Side Productions, love this name, specializing in publicity and communications. And he will also be doing he will just be speaking without a presentation. And then lastly will be Robert Pledge. Stuart's going to go first, right? Is that?
Say?
No, Julie's first.
Yeah.
Julie's first, okay. Then Stuart, then Robert. Robert's going to discuss his work representing the artist in Contact, the agency that he's run for many years, and will speak about how photojournalism enters museums, universities, and the collector's world. He's also going to give us a presentation on his recent work with John Morris and his new book of rediscovered images from 1944. It's absolutely fascinating. I've seen part of this presentation, so I'm looking forward to it again. Robert is a student of West African languages and anthropology, and that's how he came to journalism as a specialist in African affairs. And he coordinated in 1970 a daring trip into Libya and Chad with late photographer Gilles Caron and the filmmaker Robert Depardon. In 1970, he became an editor of the French visual arts magazine Zoom and director of the Gamma Picture Agency's New York office. In 1973. He founded Contact Press Images in 1976 with the American photographer David Burnett and remains its president and editorial director. So, please start.
All right. Good morning. Some slidage. Do I need to do anything, Mr. Techman? Okay, well, I shall start by introducing myself. You've heard a bit of blurb. Can we go to the top slide, please? I represent the, don't look at that. I represent the Estate of Yousuf Karsh for licensing. I've been working with the estate for about 10 years now. I've been a member of APAG since 2008.
Put up the mic. Get close.
Please make Robin Williams go away, please. I need the top slide. Can you put on the top slide? Number 1.
Always better.
There we go. Okay, so we built the Yousuf Karsh website probably about 7 or 8 years ago. It's obviously a useful resource for information. It's not the easiest thing to update. It's built in a program called Flash, which at the time was a really brilliant way to present images and video. Which we have multiple video clips on the website as well. So we use it as a way to give people information. Obviously, Mr. Karsh has been dead for a while now, so we have a finite amount of images on the site. It's not an archive. It's just a way for people to just gain information about Mr. Karsh. If anyone's interested, we actually have a clip of Mr. Karsh recreating the famous Churchill portrait with Morley Safer in the Canadian Chambers, which is actually really very entertaining, if any of you know the story of how Karsh pulled the cigar out of Churchill's mouth. And then we have just news information. So it's, like I said, it's not the easiest thing in the world to update. It's a static website. So the Karsh estate itself, has somewhat of a bonus because I also work a lot on the web and in social media, and I've been publishing online for many years now. So I ran a big photo agency till about 2006, and after that I really began to work 100% on the web. I was publishing a fashion magazine, and I'd created a bunch of websites just to kind of test how Google worked, what things made sense, what words made you return in a search result, and that kind of thing. Anyway, some of you have heard this story before. So basically in about 2007, I guess, I answered the phone to the New York Times, to one of their senior researchers, and she was using Google Images to do a search for a picture of Ian Fleming.
And she'd stopped. This is not the same result, obviously, but she'd stopped at the first image and called me and said, "Is this a Karsh?" And it freaked me out because there was no way my Karsh, Ian Fleming, was actually going to be in the search engine. So I realized that it was time to launch a blog and try and find a way to get Karsh images into the search engines under our own properties, as opposed to all the people that were going to eventually start using them from other people's properties without our permission. So essentially, I launched a blog, and I'm now, obviously, I publish all kinds of different stuff, so I do book reviews, and I use this to, as a way into the Full Screen magazine and so on. But essentially, it's a typical blog. I use a program called Movable Type, which is essentially the same as WordPress. I very, very wisely married my web designer, and it's super handy. And he happens to be fantastic as well. So I use the blog for all kinds of different things, but basically I wanted to start getting Karsh images so that when the New York Times did a Google image search for Lauren Bacall, I have an opportunity to actually come up and then call me directly. So obviously when people die, when someone makes an interesting inquiry with us, I'll mention it in the blog. And ultimately, it works. It takes time. But essentially now, since I started posting about Jonas Salk, the Salk Institute had gotten in touch with me, and we'd found some images that they had that we'd never seen, and so on. So I started blogging a bit more about Salk, and eventually you can see that our images come through when someone's looking for pictures. Then you can get really nerdy, and you can drill down into your web stats, and you can see what people are searching for and actually how they're finding you. So you can see that people are actually looking for Jonas Salk, and I do really well with a famous picture of him. For the Karsh website, we get a real kick out of being able to see how many people each month are coming to the website. Because if you think about how many people come to see an exhibition in a museum, compared to the opportunity of how many people can see your images on the web, obviously, you know, it's a lot more. I think we've made about 200 countries now. So we can use this, it doesn't serve us a huge amount of purpose other than checking where traffic comes from. So now we can see, if you look at the second line down there, what does it say? Portraitinspiration.com. They're not sending us lots of traffic, but I'm curious what that is because I certainly haven't done any business with them. So I drilled down and I managed to find this god-awful, ugly website, but sure enough, our Ernest Hemingway's there and they've credited us. So that's a good thing. So that's not an infringement that I find offensive. That's an infringement that is essentially helping our images stay relevant in things like Google search. Just to touch briefly, because I did say my talk would be about how the web can work for and against you. The Karsh website works well for us because it is a way to show things like video, that people are interested in the history of some of these images. We are able to update it with news and information, so we don't have that many shows, but obviously it's a great way to for people to just learn more. Negatives are definitely that it's been built in Flash, which some of you may understand is problematic, but it also means that you can't swipe an image off the website, so you have to go to the trouble to make an actual screen grab. The images are not like they would be in my blog. You can't just take them off the site. So, Ernest Hemingway. I think probably everybody knows the image top left. It's probably our most infringed image. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, picking your battles between when you get upset about someone using your images without permission. Petapixel is a big photography site. They publish a lot of news and stuff. They actually contacted me for permission, and I was happy that they did, because I wouldn't have thought they necessarily would. They were wanting to do an article about the Hemingway lookalike contest that goes on every year. You know, it's a nice credit, and I'm pretty happy with that. And then, of course, you find out that the guy that wrote the story is actually a Karsh fan. So then he starts writing more about Karsh, and then he, you know, talks about the story of the Churchill. So, you know, I think this is all good stuff, that the web is allowing our 70-year-old images to still be in front of people and maintain some kind of relevance without really infringing on our actual bottom line, because these people wouldn't be paying. I wanted to just touch briefly about what's going on with Getty now, because I don't know if you're all aware, but Getty opened up a large part of their editorial archive for people like me and people like you, and pretty much people like anyone that's not really literally selling a product off their website, to be able to embed images from their archive. So now I'm thinking, well, you know, no blog is ever going to properly license Churchill from me when they can just go 2 clicks and they've got it from Getty. And I think, well, Getty did that because they realized it was not financially sensible to continue pursuing every infringer. And this way, they can deliver the image to someone who wasn't going to pay. They know that the copyright information is there. If you click on the image from anybody's website, it goes straight back to that file in the Getty archive, so they know that they're protecting the information to some extent, but why would Getty do it? They can serve an ad to the blogger, and they can also garner data and information about what that person's doing on their website. So it's a little bit subversive, in my opinion. They do say that they will share some of that ad revenue with photographers, but it's going to be fractions of fractions of fractions. So you literally just go, you get a little bit of code, head over to your own blog, stick it in. Looks great. Anyway, that's happening. Sorry, 1 second. I've forgotten what order I'm going in. I want to go back to Hemingway. I want to tell a little infringement story. So I'm talking about picking battles. So I got an email from a colleague of mine. Let's put Hemingway back on because he's so handsome. I got a phone call from an old colleague of mine. She said, I've just downloaded this new app from Moleskine. Does anybody know Moleskine? They make notebooks for artists. They're really pro artist. And they'd stolen our Hemingway and they were using it in their app. It's a little strange. They sort of make out that Hemingway used their notebooks, but they weren't even making them in 1956. Anyway, so I find this image, and I'm trying to find Moleskine, and they have a New York office. So I call the New York office, and I left a voicemail saying, you know, we found this. Can you give us a ring? Don't hear anything. So I wait 24 hours. I'm getting really pissed off about it. It's a commercial thing. So, you know, all these guys use our images. If they're not credited, I drop them a line. I can only get so pissed off. I can only choose so many battles. You make a sensible decision. This is Moleskine. And I'm like, no. So I left it 24 hours, and I called again, and I got this guy's voicemail, and it turned out I think he was the marketing manager, and I told him in the voicemail that I was going to take to social media and shame them if they didn't get back to me. And I had a call within 10 minutes. And of course, they claimed everything came out of Italy. So now I'm like, well, how am I ever going to get any money out of these guys in Italy? Basically, I managed to get money out of the guys in Italy. They just didn't, it wasn't worth it to them to piss me off because I have a fairly big social media presence as aCurator, and I'm very happy to wave that around. So in the end, we settled. It wasn't easy. They wanted me to prove copyright. And myself, in my position, I'm a single person dealing in the North American market with an archive that essentially is located in the National Archives in Canada. And actually, for me, being able to prove copyright is very, very difficult, and it's a problem. And that's something that I really want to put out there, because when push comes to shove, I got away with it. You know, I was able to show them book covers with the Ernest Hemingway image in it, and just show them many instances of its usage, and they paid me to make me go away, basically. But if I'd have been able to show them a document, I would have felt a lot more confident about asking for even more money. So that's my Hemingway story. The last thing I wanted to do was just talk about being flexible in this day and age, not being too precious about things. This is the Karsh estate's hope, is that the images stay relevant and alive, and I get to make those decisions. So we photographed Nelson Mandela in 1990. It was one of the last major sessions that Karsh did. And when he died, I did, you know, there's not that many magazines left. I'm competing with Getty. I'm still trying to get high fees. So we didn't have a massive amount of usage, but I woke up the following morning to an email from Apple, and they wanted to use it. And then they wanted to change it. And then they wanted to not give me a credit. And I decided to say yes for not much money. And the Karsh estate told me they thought it was the greatest thing that I had done for Karsh in 10 years. It was on the homepage of apple.com for 3 weeks. It's become the iconic image of Nelson Mandela. So how did I manage I mean, believe me, I made a very nice living from licensing, and I am all about making money for the Karsh estate. But I also understand that that's not always our primary concern. So I followed it up on social media, and lots and lots and lots and lots of people were talking about this, which was the point for me for letting them use it. And I just followed up with things like this on Twitter with a tweet saying, by the way, this is an image by Yousuf Karsh, and link back to our website. It was hard. It was very difficult. I had a couple sleepless nights about this usage, but at the end of the day, I think it was totally worth it. And, to be fair, it is in keeping. This is only the 3rd time they've done a memorial. Robin Williams didn't get the same length of time on the homepage as Nelson Mandela, but I wanted to show this just to prove the point that other people are prepared to let them do this to their images as well, because it's Apple, and probably 1 billion people have seen it in a couple days. That's about it. Thank you.
Hi. She's so well organized. All right. So this is, I have no real experience with photographers other than hiring them occasionally to do press shoots or publicity shots most frequently, and my interaction with them is largely initially from a website, looking at a website, which in the best case scenario is really simple and well laid out and gives a good sense of sort of the scope of what they can do, or different types of shots they can do, inside, outside, very basic sort of things that I'm looking for. But I thought I'd just I feel that often when people want to learn about this very broad topic of websites and social media, questions are often the easiest way, because it's hard for me to know where people are coming from. But I'm going to go ahead and lay out a couple, some general thoughts on all this, and then I'm happy to answer questions either here or afterwards or anytime. So websites. How many of you have websites? Are you all? And these are all. And these are. I guess I'm not sure if these are usually your website or your institution's website or organizations, but I'm assuming it's sort of a combination of those things. And how many of you are on social media in one way or another? And is that? How about personally? Personally, and then professionally? And how many is that separate? How many for? Only professionally, okay. So it sounds like a lot of you, or at least have your feet in the water with social media. So for websites, and this is a really good place to start. Julie's sites were a really nice starting point. They were both the sites, the aCurator and the Karsh site, were very simple and elegant and easy to use. I think that's the primary concern for you, and also the ability for people to find you. So you want to have a very clear sort of contact page, and there may be different reasons that people would contact you. There may be a different thing you would want people to do if they want a license, or if they want to reach out about. There may be various things you're trying to do. So you want to make that very clear on how they should reach out to you. But generally speaking, just a very simple website, and you're lucky, because I work with musicians usually, and visual content is always the struggle. Like finding something striking to put on the website, content-wise, is a challenge. But you have it in spades, which is you're lucky. So you're starting ahead of almost everyone else in the world, coming from it from photographer standpoint. So I think Penelope was going to put what I wrote here, in something that you have, but I have a couple of websites that I just sort of dug up and found that I liked, that some photographers that I thought did a good job displaying their work. One is Eric R.Y. This is a hard one. Eric R.Y.A.N. Anderson. And then the other is worldinmylens.com. If you just were curious about some sites that I found that I did like. She mentioned Flash, which is sort of at this point not being used, but it sort of brings up the question as to whether how it is sometimes scary to put so much time and energy and money into something you're worried will be, out of date in sort of the nearest future. I think that concern is less than it was 5 years ago or so, when Flash was really at its height, or even 7 years ago. And what did you use to build aCurator?
Well, the full screen site is something called Slideshow Pro, but the blog is movable type.
Yeah, movable type. Yeah, movable type and WordPress, and there are the Squarespace, I think Square. There are these software, basically online. There are applications you can use to build your site from the back end that makes it very easy to update yourself. I would definitely recommend hiring a designer. They're still in the equation.
Marrying a designer.
Yeah, we can't all marry a designer. But yeah, designer is still in the equation, but using WordPress. WordPress is a huge percentage of the sites you see are built using WordPress. At this point, I would say it could be over 50% of all websites you see. It just makes it it's something that designers know. It's easy for them. It brings costs down, and it makes it easy for you to update internally, at least relatively speaking. I would recommend something like WordPress, especially unless there's you have a bigger budget and very unique sort of needs. Then building from scratch is still sort of the best way. But I would guess that in most cases in this room that's not necessary. And WordPress does a great job providing very simple, elegant websites that can look very diverse. Yeah, there's no worry about looking like a template anymore. I feel like that's sort of a thing of the past to some degree. You can have your own identity and still have a site that wasn't built from the ground up. So yeah, that also leads to the designer. In the days of paying for a designer to update small updates, down the road at an hourly rate, are sort of waning. I think that you should try to stay away from that. It's not something most of my clients do. So it's totally possible to make those yourself, or at least keep those sort of things to a minimum. Although it is a good idea to keep. It's nice to have a good relationship with a designer and stay in touch if you have questions. But I've worked with designers that will provide the client with a YouTube video with sort of instructions on how to update their site, how certain things are done, and then they can. The client can show that video to their staff, or if they have a new intern or something like that, it makes it really easy to sort of pass knowledge down instead of it just getting watered down from one employee to the next, as somebody leaves. And in my music business, and I'm sure it's similar in this world, there tend to be a lot of assistant type positions that are updating websites that they're not around that long. A lot of the time, it's like a year long, 2 years. There's an intern, so to keep that. You want to have instructions for maintaining the website in a very clear way, so you can pass that down. And also, okay, so onto social media. The website is sort of, I think of it as the headquarters of your online identity, but everything out there is basically your brand, I don't really like the word brand, but it's your brand, it's who you are. And you never know how someone who's looking for you or the photographer or the photo is going to find you. They could come from so many different ways. They could come through Facebook, straight to your website, through a third-party site that happens to be linking to something of yours. So you want to make sure that you have a very clear sort of center. I think of the website as the center, and then from the website, you should clearly be able to guide people to, let people know that you're out there on Twitter, Facebook, and then whatever else you might want to do. Twitter and Facebook are the sort of the two pillars, the center of the social media world at this point still. And I would say that Facebook is waning quickly, maybe not so quickly, but it's something's changing with Facebook. I would say it's much more ad driven. It's much more it's less sort of quick to have conversations. Twitter is still a place where people go to have interaction quickly, find out what's going on in the moment. Facebook is more newsletter driven for organizations like this. You could post once a day, once a week even on Facebook, whereas Twitter I would recommend you could do as many as you want, really. You could keep it one an hour if you wanted to, but I know that's not possible. But I would recommend a couple a day. But that's not as hard as it sounds. There are applications out there, so you can schedule these out. You can on Monday morning, you could come in and schedule tweets for the next month and never have to think about it again. And in some cases, if Twitter is something you hate, and I understand that there are people out there that despise the whole notion of social media, the quickness, the annoyingness of social media, and believe me, I understand that side of things. There is something, you can make it as easy as you want, you can be as involved as you want, but I would recommend having a presence. But scheduling it out allows sort of a distance from that while still seeming active and consistent. So there's something called Hootsuite, Hootsuite.com. There's a bunch of these where you can schedule things, but TweetDeck, Hootsuite, there's a number of them. If you were just to Google Hootsuite versus whatever, and there's a bunch of competitors. But I use Hootsuite personally. And I have a associate. We work together to schedule tweets for, we handle about 15 Twitter accounts and, 20 Facebook pages and all these things. And somehow we're able to do it, but only through sort of mapping out the plan of how we want to come across on all these different platforms. So usually we would schedule out, and also we would develop almost like a spreadsheet or a calendar of what we want social media to be doing for this client. So it was very different for a soloist, like a jazz musician, compared to a music manager in a company. So we would come up with a sort of a 2-week plan. On Mondays we do this. We have a tweet that highlights someone on the roster. On Tuesdays we highlight a track from the most recently released album. On Wednesdays we do a video for a performer that's performing next. On Thursdays we do Throwback Thursday is sort of a dumb thing that is out there, TBT. So we do a Throwback Thursday with an old video or old review or something. So we just have this sort of schedule, so if we're ever in doubt of if we just don't want to think about Twitter, we just look at this and say, this is what we need to do today, or this is what we're going to schedule through the week. Or we can hand it over to an intern and say, can you do this for the next week? And then we can, if it's scheduled out, you can look at those and sort of make sure that they look good, edit them, sort of keep it all as manageable as possible, because that is really the battle with all this stuff, is just keeping it not overwhelming. Because once it seems overwhelming, you just drop it all, and then there's a silence and unupdated calendars and all these things that you're trying to avoid. But it is understandable that when there's so much it seems like there's so much to do, you tend to run away. So we try to avoid that. In addition to Facebook and Twitter, which are kind of like the musts, I would say. If you're going to do social media, those are the two you would want to do. And in each of those cases, I would usually advise to have a artist or business organizational identity, like a page on Facebook for your collection or something, and then individual page for yourself too. Same with Twitter. This is just a way to once you are comfortable, or it gives you another opportunity to push, to sort of help your page. If you have a personal identity, it's another voice. So it can only, you're an ally for your other identity, honestly. But you also can come up with a different voice. In some cases, it's very helpful to have a distance from your business or artistic voice. Sorry to keep using that word, but finding your sort of voice on these things is important. You want to be consistent in your tone and just your general approach to things. There are obviously other social media platforms out there, and Instagram seems like a really natural fit for this room. Do a lot of you have Instagram accounts? Yeah. Instagram's really active. I would say that it still seems like it's growing really fast. It's owned by Facebook, so it gets more views on Facebook because there's weird algorithmic bias, I guess, on Facebook. So those posts that you post from Instagram to Facebook will actually get more views than the average post because they want to push Instagram. So, but in addition to that, it's just I think it's a great tool. It's easy. It gives you, it's simple. So Instagram is something that it seems like a great fit, and also you want to come up with a reason to do it. So with Instagram, and really with Tumblr, or even with Twitter, it doesn't have to be just a general news updates. You want to come up with maybe on Instagram you're featuring historical photos, or you're featuring photos that are not available for license, maybe sort of studies or some specific thing that they can only get here. That's sort of interesting. It's separate. There's a sort of hook to it. And the same with Facebook and Twitter. You don't want everything to be particularly salesy. You don't want to do a lot of pushing of trying to sell something. You want to be a resource, be social, be interactive, be something that's interesting to people. All right, I feel like I'm really rambling. So let's see where I am here. Everyone has strengths that you want to sort of think about what those strengths are and really play to those. They may be historical photos. You may have an archive that can somehow relate to current events, or can relate to seasons, or sports, or something that's happening in the moment that you can use in social media. And those sort of timely things will get more attention out there. Will get retweets. Will get favorited, that sort of thing. And you can also look out for, say you had an idea that the fall is coming. You have a lot of seasonal fall photos. I'm really stretching here, but you could start to find similar audiences out there, similar people that are posting similar types of things, and really sort of try to push a certain image to a certain crowd, and in that way sort of build your own, build awareness of your brand, your archive, your collection. I think from there, it'll be best to take these as individual questions. Sorry if this is sort of a buckshot approach to both of these things, but thank you very much.